and welcome to Center of Weirdness, the weird podcast about very weird stuff, but mostly it's just TV episodes that we think are fun to talk about. I'm Josh, and with me, as always, is my best buddy, Cyber Skinner.
Beep bop boop bop boop bop loading. This is Skinner.
So this week on the show, that is appropriate, and it will become clear why it is appropriate when I tell you that this week on the show, we are covering The Net, the 1998 TV show. And boy, oh boy, this was something special, I think, right? I don't know. I mean, we have a nice list of things that we've wanted to cover for a while. We keep adding new shows. And this has been on there, I think, pretty much from when we started talking about doing Center of Weirdness as a show, transitioning from PredictoCast over to just doing these weird like random TV show episodes. And I think The Net has been on there for a while, just because I think you and I both love the like internet in the late 90s.
Love the internet in late nights. Have great fondness for it. I love how it's portrayed in media because it functionally it is cinematically uninteresting.
Yeah.
The internet at that point, so they had to make up shit about what it's doing. Also, I love movies turned into TV shows.
Yeah, for sure.
In the cheapest manner,
yes.
And the worse the TV show, the movie, the better I find the TV show.
Yeah, we covered pretty early on. I think our very first episode was on Time Cop, the series, which was
that no one remembers exists.
which was pretty crazy and pretty bad. And this is another in that great sort of idea that like, yeah, we're gonna turn this movie, which was, I think The Net was fairly successful. I think I don't really remember it. It came out 95, I believe, and I don't really remember much about that movie. I've seen it, but I could not give you. I know that there's some sort of government conspiracy plot or something that she uncovers. And
are they Praetorians?
I don't really know. Maybe I'm not really sure. I do not remember. I know that
they are.
Okay. So that's what the terrorist organization is the Praetorians or Praetorians or whatever.
Yeah. So it made 22 million. It was a budget of 22 million, made 110.6 million.
Okay. So pretty good
for Sylvester Stallone's favorite producer.
Yeah, Irwin Winkler produced this. He also is involved with the television show, and he is the guy who basically holds the rights to Rocky and has prevented Stallone from really like making another Rocky movie the way that he wants to do it, because I guess Irwin Winkler and his family have decided that they're just going to basically like hold on to this thing, which is kind of crazy because if anything, like Rocky feels very personal to Stallone. I mean, the guy wrote and he wrote the first movie and like might have even, did he direct the first movie? I don't even remember, but like obviously very, very embedded in his DNA. And the fact that this other guy like sort of owns the rights to that is probably very frustrating. No, it was John Avildsen who directed it, but Stallone did write it. And he hates Irwin Winkler, and maybe it was because he didn't like the Net TV show. Maybe that was part of it. Like already,
I can't imagine him not liking the soundtrack of the show. I like how it's not subtle.
This it's also co-produced and by Rob Cohen, not the Rob Cohen the director, but the Rob Cohen, might be Rob Cowan anyway. But he's a producer. He's worked on Aquaman, The Conjuring. And he's also he also produced a film called San Andreas, which stars Dwayne Johnson, who maybe they had a good working relationship from this specific episode of The Net that we're going to talk about, which happens to feature Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in one of his very, very early acting roles. This is from season 1. There was only one season, by the way. Episode 20, Last Man Standing, from March of 1999. And the synopsis is, Agent Angela must put a stop to a cybercast wrestling matches fought to the death.
Yep, that was all we needed to see. I mean, there were two people we were hoping to see on this show.
Yeah.
Neither were The Rock,
No. Uh
but unfortunately, their runs had stopped before this episode.
Yeah, so you're going to give me some information in just a second, but one person that was apparently in this show was Tim Curry. He apparently is in like the first half of the season, I think the first 8 or 9 episodes, and then he leaves. And then the second person that we were interested in seeing in this show was Joseph Bottoms, and the only reason that we were interested is because he was the lead in Wishman that we covered a couple months ago. Which, if you haven't heard that episode, you should definitely go back and see it. But apparently, Joseph Bottoms' character was killed in the episode prior to this one. I think maybe.
Yeah, he was the main antagonist, and like Trelawney, which is a good antagonist
Mhm.
name for a TV show of this caliber.
Yeah, his name was
But he got
Sean Trelawney. Like what a
Sean
mouthful of a name.
Sean Lonnie, Sharon Lonley, but he was killed off. This seems to be a soft reboot that did not work.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. I guess between the last episode and this one, she goes to Quantico for 8 weeks or something, and joins the FBI and goes through all of her training. And one of her training officers is The Rock.
Yeah, and this is 1998 Rock. Hasn't been The Rock for long, as opposed to Dwayne The Rock Johnson. He's 2 years away from the Mummy Returns.
Yeah.
He's 4 years away from Scorpion King. He has, and then I'm not saying he didn't have. He had lots of charisma in ring by 97, 98.
Yeah.
He is so clearly intimidated on this in front of all these great stars, like the guy that Josh had a haircut next to.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about
And-
that.
and others. But yeah, he looks so timid.
Well, so I think what it is that I've never I've acted in like little short films and things like that, but never anything major and big. But what I've always read about actors when they transition from one medium to another, that they kind of have to like figure out how to recalibrate for that. So like theater actors, like in the early days of cinema and whatnot, they would, when they were transitioning from doing like theater things into like movies, you had to kind of recalibrate how what your performance was, because on stage you're being very big because you're playing to the back of the house and you're trying to make sure everyone can kind of get a sense of what you're doing. And then when you're on film, it's obviously very different. You can have a little bit more nuance. And I think what's happening is The Rock, obviously very comfortable being in front of a large group of people, being the center of attention, and really having to like really overdo it so that people can kind of see what's going on if they're way in the back of an auditorium or an arena. And then he comes into filming a TV show, and he dials it way down, but then you kind of lose a little bit of that charisma and that excitement coming from him,
because his entire positioning in this episode is of somebody who is of great physical force.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
Big confident guy, except for he just looks polite and monotone. and by our eyes, he looks like he has baby fat on his face.
Yeah, well, so this is definitely that era before, well before The Rock like turned into the completely
grind machine,
the completely like shredded up creature that he is now. And I think he has slowly backed off of that. Like, he does not look as insane.
He was monster big in probably 2019. Like, he was as big as a fucking building.
Yeah, he looks like I went to see a movie the other day, and they had the trailer for that god awful looking Red One movie that's coming out later on this year, where like he is Santa Claus's trainer and Santa Claus gets kidnapped and he has to like bring him back.
I hear they want that to be a ongoing IP.
I don't fucking know how you would do that, but okay. I guess if we're gonna get a couple movies with The Rock and J.K. Simmons hanging out, I guess that'll be fine.
I've seen every possible reaction to that, which I mean too, which is this is the worst movie I've ever seen from that trailer, and this looks like great fun, and they're in on it.
Okay, so I mean, we're getting off topic way early, but like that premise, I think for you and me, who have covered a lot of Christmas movies in our time doing podcasts together, I think sounds fun. Like Santa Claus gets kidnapped and then somebody has to bring him back, but it just looks kind of dull and boring, and like it looks very obvious. Like a lot of the jokes that they make look very obvious, and it just looks kind of bland. Like it doesn't look like there's as much excitement to it.
Just the idea of calling him Red One, like that's the military.
Yeah, it's like the presidential call sign for Santa.
Yeah, so like just even that is such a fucking DreamWorks cartoon.
Yeah.
Premise. Like this should just be an animated idea if they want that, and it just should be on Netflix.
It very much looks to be like a Netflix style movie, because for a while there, The Rock was doing a lot of those. I think he even had didn't he have one with was it with Gosling or with Ryan Reynolds, Red Notice, which came out like a couple of years ago?
The one of those movies that doesn't exist
that cost like $300 million, and it was like, what?
And then like that was one of the first ones where they said like everyone on the planet watched it, and everyone turned to the person next to them and were like, "Did you watch this?" And they're like, "No." And they're like, "Well, I'm sorry, 3 trillion people watched the show."
But for us, like for us who've covered a lot of Santa movies, we always have talked about like the Santa lore, and it's like, I wonder what Red One will introduce into the Santa lore, besides the fact that Santa can do 1,000 shoulder presses with a ton of weight. Like other than that, I think like
what's unfortunate is that we're gonna have to end up watching that for the show.
Yeah, maybe we might have to do a special. But anyway, so
a Christmas special.
So, but that's all to say is The Rock looks like he's maybe like he's kind of like tapered off the things that he was doing in that movie. He doesn't look as insane. He's still huge.
Does he look like a Santa with muscles?
J.K. Simmons is Santa, so yes, a little bit.
That's really horning in on the business of a certain Republican National Convention speaker.
What is funny to me is that like there was that a long time ago there was the picture of J.K. Simmons going around where he was like working out, and it was supposedly for Zack Snyder's Justice League, and he had like this photo of him with like just like lifting a bunch of weight, and his biceps were popping, and he just looked amazing, and everybody's like, look at J.K. Simmons, looks awesome, this is crazy. And he was like, yeah, working out for Zack Snyder's Justice League. And then he's like barely in the movie, and any scene he's in, he's wearing a fucking shirt and a jacket, and he was like, all right, what was the point of that? And it's like, we didn't know at the time that he was training to
be Santa Claus
over a decade later.
This Red One, directed by Zack Snyder. What do you think?
I mean, that would at least get me interested in seeing how terrible it would be. Like, it would be forgettable, but in a way where you're like at least kind of curious. I mean, I think that unfortunately, I think the shine has kind of come off the apple for Zack Snyder, because even when he put out some like dog shit that people wanted to talk about, like those Rebel Moon movies, like everybody seemed to talk about the first one and how bad it was, and then the second one came out and barely anyone talked about it at all.
The second one came out.
Yeah, the second one came out, and he's got 2 more coming supposedly, but like even
are they gonna debut it at cons like Horizon 2?
I mean, it seems like,
or is it Sundance? Which one has it?
I have no idea, but it seems like no one cares. Like no one cares about the second one that came out, and I will be surprised if the next one comes out.
Never just fucking say like this is going to be 4 movies. Just don't do it.
Yeah, you could just make one, and then if it's successful, then you could try to make a second one if it was good.
Did you know that for Horizon, they're gonna when they do show it at a festival, they're gonna make everyone watch the first one and second one?
I mean, I still want to kind of see the first one because I've heard it's beautiful in terms of just the photography and the West and all that. So
I feel like because of that, and because of its failure, and because it's a beautiful thing, and like it's a movie no one makes anymore. Yes, we'll get back to the net. I don't give a shit about it.
We'll get back to it,
but yeah, don't worry about it. But like, I feel like it's gonna be one of those things that's reclaimed later.
I think yes,
because Costner is such a by today's standard, odd character.
Yes, for sure. He's a weird guy. There's the whole like all the stuff with Yellowstone with him. Your Republican uncle's favorite TV show, and
Which he actually kind of isn't. Which is
yeah,
weird in its own way.
It's weird.
People forget he's Californian.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. He's a weird guy. He likes to. I think I cut him a slight bit of slack because that guy fucking goes for it, man. He swings like crazy, and he puts all of this money and time into things, and all of his movies seem to kind of be disasters. Like I think with the exception of maybe Dances with Wolves, like that was his last big huge success, because like Waterworld obviously huge failure, Postman huge failure, like this huge failure.
He didn't direct Waterworld. He just had Final Cut and basically directed.
I mean,
but
that's his movie. Like that.
That's his movie.
It doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter. Kevin Reynolds was not that. He did not have anything to do with that. Kevin Costner is a huge egotist, and he has to be in control.
Why would you say that
all things?
About a guy? What do you say about a guy who continually writes characters whose cum is so valuable?
Yeah, he's like it's a.
Speaking of Black Adam and people who have huge have huge egos and make themselves look great.
Yeah, sure. So the net.
The net. So what struck me right away, because we do start with her getting trained for becoming the only graduate for a entirely new branch of the American Intelligence Committee.
The CIC, right?
Very close to the CDC.
Yeah.
But like they do show her being like, The Rock shows her how to attack somebody and use their weight against them and pin them down.
Yeah.
And then she is able to do it to him, to his shock. And I thought, man, Vin Diesel could never get this over on him today. He would never let this happen.
That shows you how early in his career it is. He's like, yeah, it's fine. A woman can flip me over and she can beat me. Like
these guys are so insecure. I want to point out, I think I mentioned the show before, back in the day, these wrestlers. So when like IGN or something was having like shooting footage for leaks of wrestling games, which used to be an entire industry just showing who's in the game and what their entrance was like.
Yeah.
Like Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Paul Levesque would call up these websites and say, you cannot show footage of my character being pinned or put in a move. Like he would call them up and say, we will not give you the footage if I'm shown not being on the offense on your website in the 2000s. These people were insecure, but in this episode, he's just there to make everyone look good.
Yeah, I think that I
Is it weird that she's so successfully she's super confident in this? I don't know what she is in the net, but she's super confident, and she takes down two large guys very easily in this show.
Yeah, I think that we should probably understand that obviously there's been a lot of adventures that she's been on in the preceding 19 episodes that we don't know about. So clearly, she has
she's
had to deal
up
with a lot. And I think that if I'm not wrong, based on at least what the first episode synopsis is of this show, I think the first episode is kind of just possibly just kind of a rehash of the movie. Like it says she finds her way onto a secure database run by a crime syndicate called the Praetorians. As a result, they delete her identity from electronic existence, and she is forced to go on the run. And that's kind of what the movie is about, sort of, right?
That sounds fiction. Yeah, I think it is. That sounds so fictional. Imagine fucking if like, I don't know, if someone got like every single American social security number.
Yeah, that'll timestamp this.
No one will know that even happened because they barely talked about it.
I didn't know about it until you told me about it, and I thankfully do have some credit monitoring services and stuff.
That's who they hacked to get it.
Well, but yeah, at least they'll tell me when they start to steal all my money and open up some fake credit cards. They'll give me a little pop-up alert like, hey, did you mean to open this? And
how many purchases from Temu did you need?
yeah, this speaking of that, it's like you have we have the net at home, and that's what this show is. We have the
Man,
net on Timu.
we have net on Temu. That's what this is. So, like, this is kind of a soft reboot. Um, she's she. We know one of the storylines, which one of our favorite storylines in any of these shows is she's afraid to pull the trigger on a gun and kill
Yeah, very
somebody,
very much a flashback to Tequila and Bonetti, which we covered
which
fairly
they
recently.
he dropped up very. I mean, he had. Did she kill a kid?
Yeah, unclear if she killed a kid and is afraid. I guess dropping into the episode towards the end of the run kind of robs us of some things, but we didn't get any there were no real flashbacks as far as I could tell to other episodes where she should have shot someone and didn't.
I feel like it was part of her training problem.
Yeah, maybe that was just the one thing that she kind of
Or
froze
maybe
up
she
on.
shot Trelawney and now she's scared to shoot again.
That could be it. Maybe that's what it is. That would make sense.
Someone could have said that out loud. It would have been easier.
Yeah. Oh, you're still dealing with it after that because they don't really give it that much attention. It's more just like the sort of general thing that if you are not a person who's used to shooting people, that you might go through the problem of, oh man, I'm about to potentially kill this person.
Man, I love, like, just for my own self, it's a terrible set, but I love that the reboot of this show puts their new head office in a 1990s computer shop, like a hobby shop, not a Circuit USA.
Yeah.
And it's just got shit everywhere. There's this awesome big board of buttons and levers on the side that looks like something a Stream Deck would be today. And I'm like, but there is no streaming.
Yeah.
There is in this episode, but there is no streaming then. I'm like, what the fuck is that? That's just sitting there. It's so cool. It turns out it just controls what music's playing in the shop.
It's so funny that you brought up like a shitty hobby computer store because that immediately, now that I'm thinking about it, this shop very much reminded me of very recently. I pulled out this old hard drive to get some stuff off of it. Hard drive didn't work. Okay, this sucks. Let me look around, see if there's anybody who can maybe crack into it, see if they can fix it, and try to get my data back. So I find a place pretty close to my apartment. I give them a call, drive over there, drop off my drive, and they give me a call back the day or so later, and are saying like, oh, we can't do this. We don't have the right equipment. You have to have like a clean room and somebody needs to go in and like actually open the thing up and do all this extra stuff. So I'm like, all right, fine. I'll go by and pick it up. And this place was very similar to the shop that we see in this episode. There's just shit everywhere. Like it feels like it's a big store, like big for what it is. But like it feels like there's just junk all over the place, like random cables on the floor, like random there's like all of these different kind of like countertops like throughout the store where you might stand talking to someone, as like if they're trying to sell you something or go through something or look at a laptop screen together, like little desks kind of all over the place, like standing desks, and just junk all over them. Junk on the shelves. Like there's product, but it's also just kind of like sort of just there, like these old boxes, like you kind of mentioned the old like drive boxes with dragons and shit on them.
Oh yeah, the old graphics card, the 3D accelerator card. You want dragons and women and ladies and wizards
yes.
on those,
and aliens and all of the UFOs and shit, spaceships and everything. So they have.
I want my sound blaster.
Yeah, they have all that kind of stuff still on the shelves and so they have all this stuff around, and then of course behind the counter it's just completely junk, like just stuff everywhere, cables and hard drives and shit stacked on top of each other, just all over the place. So I go back to get my drive. I'm like, all right, fine, you can't do it. I'll find somewhere else. I'll come back and pick up my drive. I go in. Nobody in the store. There's no one.
You talk
there.
to ghosts,
and I'm like, all right, this is weird. So I'm standing there, and I whenever I put myself into that kind of situation where like I go to a desk to get help and there's no one there, I try to like wait for a little bit. Like I'll wait for like 20, 30 seconds. Maybe they just stepped away. They'll come back. I don't want to be that guy who walks up, doesn't see anyone, and immediately like rings a bell or calls out. Like. I like to give it a little bit of time because I'm like, I'm not impatient. I can I can wait here for a minute. And so eventually that 30 or so seconds rolls around, and I kind of like, all right, well, there's like a kitchen area that I can kind of see into the door of from the counter where I'm standing. And I'm thinking, oh, maybe someone's in there. Maybe they're having a lunch or something, and they didn't hear me come in, even though there's this loud dinging noise on the door when someone comes in. So I call out, I'm like, hello. And then nobody answers. And I'm like, oh, immediately my brain goes to, oh God, did someone like fall down and hurt themselves? Did they have a heart attack? Did something happen to the person and they're like laying in there on the floor, like choking to death or something? And I'm just standing out here going, hello, hello. And like, this person's going to die because I don't go back there to help them. So that is what immediately goes through my brain of like, oh no, something is seriously wrong and I need to do something. And so I call out a couple more times, like, hello, hello. Maybe they're, in the back smoking or something, or, whatever. Nobody responds. I'm standing there for like a minute or two. Finally, I'm like, all right, fine. I will call the number. I'll call them while I'm standing in here, and then maybe they'll hear the phone. Maybe they're like somewhere else in the basement or something, and they don't know that I'm here. So I call the number, phone rings, and then someone picks up and they're like, hello. And then I turn, and the other guy who helped me literally the day before walks in the door, like where I walked in, the main door. And he's like, oh, hey, can I help you? I'm like, yeah, I've been standing here and no one's here. And I just called and, he picked up, but then you walked in. And he's like, oh, yeah, he's outside. And turns out the guy was he was like sitting in his car outside the front. And this is like in a little like shopping center kind of thing. So there's a bunch of shops around it. And
like a Subway would be there.
Yes,
or something.
Actually, there was a Subway right next door. And he was literally sitting in his car, like right in front of the building. I walked right by him. But he was just sitting in his car with the door open, like digging through his glove box, because I saw him when I walked in, and I didn't know that was the guy who worked in the store.
Why would you? Like I never walk out to a store and see someone in a car outside the store and go, "Do you work here?"
Yeah, and then I'm obviously belaboring this story, and it's going on way too long. But then I was like,
This should be what an episode of the net should be about, because it's more accurate to the experience of 1998.
This is what that guy Walter was doing before she shows up. But like I'm like, hey, I'm here to pick up my hard drive, and the guy was like, oh, okay, what's your name? And so I give him my name, and I'm kind of annoyed because one, I've had to wait there, and like that's totally not really professional to just leave your store unoccupied and not be paying attention when people go in it. So clearly I'm one of the only customers they have, which also kind of annoyed me because it was like, I just literally talked to you on the phone yesterday and told you I was coming in to pick up my drive, and you don't remember who I am. You cannot have that much business in this store to not remember me. And so finally I got my drive, which was also a nightmare because they gave me the drive, but they had already pulled it out of the housing, the case. And I was like, can I get the case back? And they're like, oh, that's probably in the garbage. So
this is a good shop. You should go there.
So
again.
They had to go dig through their recycling and find the case to give it back to me. And granted, I didn't need it, but it was kind of the principle of the thing. I gave you a power cable. I gave you the thing. Like, I want all the shit back if you're not going to do it. And then, and I think the guy could tell that I was pissed off and aggravated because he didn't charge me for even them looking at it. Because initially he told me, like, we'll look at it, and if we can't do it, then we'll charge you, like, the worker fee or whatever to do the work. And he didn't charge me anything because he could tell how frustrated I was. And then I had to send it off and pay a bunch of money, and I got the data back. But like, this shop is that shop. Like the shop in the show is exactly the shop that I was in.
Like honest to God, this, rather than cage fighting, is what this show should be about.
Like them running a computer shop and dealing with, like, it would be fun if she wasn't in the FBI and that, like, it was just them solving mysteries of people who brought in things for them to fix, and then them dealing with, like, oh, there's something weird on this hard drive, we need to investigate.
There's something weird on this laptop. What could it be? Oh, whose laptop is it? What's Hunter Biden's? It's a laptop from hell.
Yeah, I'm sorry for derailing us there a little bit, but it felt relevant to the conversation. But we should talk about this fucking
Okay,
stupid episode.
there's not much to say about it other than like one, has the most sound of any show we've ever watched.
Yeah,
Like besides vocal, the most of the dialogue, which I kind of missed over the incredible
yeah.
soundtrack and sound
Soundtrack's
effects.
really loud. It's mixed. It's mixed in a weird way. It could be like what we're watching it on. We were watching this on archive.org because I guess this is not really streaming anywhere. So
Because no one knows it exists.
it's been erased from the net. Shout out to Archive. Great place to find some old TV shows and things that aren't available to stream anymore. So, good resource if you're ever out looking for something weird to watch. There might be something good on Archive. So definitely check that out. But yeah, so she goes and sets up shop in Seattle in this little computer store that's run by this guy Walter, and who she knows previously. I don't know if he's been in the show before now.
This is his debut.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it
No,
is.
they act like they've known each other for a really long time. Maybe he was a character from the movie, if this is the same continuity and it's not just like a complete, reboot or whatever. Maybe he's somehow...
He seems to also know who Sorcerer is.
Okay, so you should explain that to me. I know we're jumping all over the place, but so now Eric Zamata, who you probably know from CSI.
Your moms and aunts know from CSI.
Yeah, I mean, I watched CSI when I was growing up. I mean, there was...
You're old enough to be a mom and aunt.
There was a time when I enjoyed that show.
He has always had bad hair.
Yeah,
and that was his character. He looks the worst.
Yeah,
the worst in this show.
He was on 333 episodes of CSI, which is crazy. I think there were only like 335 or 340 or something like that. So he was on it for almost the entire run.
He's still doing the character for the spinoffs.
Yes, and he has done the character in other spinoff shows. I famously got a haircut next to him once.
The man with as soon as you go to a place and he's getting a haircut and he famously has bad haircuts, just walk out.
I mean, the person that I was getting a haircut from did a good job, but yes, but he was there when I lived in Los Angeles. He was getting his haircut right next to me in the place that I went, which was pretty fun. But yeah, he shows up at a midway point through the movie, and the show, and I think he is a staple character. He's been in the show before. He's friends with her in some way. He's in college.
So his character is Sorcerer.
Yeah.
That's his call.
That's his
sign.
handle. If we're gonna get into internet culture,
he's a hacker. He's part of the hacking crew, phone freaks or whatever you want to call them. So he. Originally, Sorcerer was just a voice over the phone or probably the internet. So Sorcerer was Tim Curry, and then when Tim Curry was done, they revealed that he was using a voice modulator, and he's actually this kid.
That sucks.
And that's why you'll see a lot of reviews saying like, no one's watched this show after Tim Curry left because it was immediately 1,000 times worse.
Wow, that sucks. So he comes in after Tim Curry leaves, basically, as a replacement.
Yeah, he's the same character, except for Tim Curry was just a voice or whatever. Maybe I would hope they have a bad CGI like face talking.
Oh, that would be good, like a Lawnmower Man-esque Tim Curry face.
Yes, but instead it is revealed that it is, instead of a older British man, it is this kid,
man,
with a dyed blonde hair.
That sucks. I fucking hate that. Yeah, he shows up midway through. They obviously know each other for a variety of reasons, I guess, in previous episodes. Maybe, I guess, Tim Curry was helping her with some cases or something, I guess, just like only online, and then that they became friends. But he's like a young college kid. He's a freshman, I think, is what they're implying.
Yeah, you're implying that because he says that only the seniors are getting
laid.
All the freshman girls are dating seniors.
Yes,
which I know happens, but as we get more into the world, the late 20s, when you're talking about like much older boys with very young girls, it's kind of grosser, but
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. I'm gonna be a senior before I get to get laid, I think is what he says.
Yeah, with like a 17-year-old or whatever he
But
wants.
we haven't really like touched on the actual like case that they're trying to solve, which is there is an underground fighting ring
Of course there
where
is.
there are fights to the death. So there are these two men who fight inside a cage, and so far one guy, John Storm, has killed his previous 6 opponents. And so they're, I guess, the CIC that she works for now. I guess it's just her and that Walter guy are,
Because she was the only graduate from the class. They make a point of saying that.
Are trying to figure out where this is broadcasting from so that they can try to stop it and, arrest the people. Now, again, this is 99 when this episode is on. The show started in 98, carried over into the new year. So this is in what did I say, March or May, I think, March of 99. And they are broadcasting this on like a hidden website. And like
hidden website called lastmanstanding.com.
.net, excuse me. It's .net. Which, okay, so she's like going through all of these like things to try to figure out where like they're watching the broadcast and they know about the broadcast, but she has to find the feed for it. So then she does like some hacking to find out that it's lastmanstanding.net. So then she searches to get to it. I never understood what was happening here. Like she types it into like a search field, which then does a bunch of like a bunch of things that then gets her to the website. So she has to like hack to get to the website, and then she just puts her credit card info in to get in to pay $50. Like, why not hack into the system so you can watch it for free?
The whole process of getting to a website it comes off like she's doing magic. And like, but then it's streaming far too high quality.
Yes, this is 99. This is live. Not even like, there's no way it would look this good.
This had the best soundtrack. So like canonically, the song that there's playing when we watch them fight is playing in the arena because they later stop it. Or they show them watching the stream and we hear it through their computer speaker. It's the best fighting song since the UFC, the ridiculous UFC fighting in what's the Russell Crowe movie?
Oh,
where he plays the AI man come to life.
Oh fuck, I don't know. Oh God, the one with Denzel, right?
Yeah, so I had it in my head until I started saying it out loud.
Oh Jesus, why can I not? I can't remember it either. Let's see,
Virtuosity.
That's it.
So in that movie, there's this great scene where they go to the UFC, and in the movie UFC, it's just 14 guys having 7 fights at the same time in a cage, which is not what UFC is. While the crowd just all in unison over and over go, kapow, 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 and they do it constantly the entire time they're fighting. So the fans are all like just creating the soundtrack of the fight. This one is close. There is no crowd for it, which is a budgetary concern, but they're also trying to hide what they're doing with their $50 pay-per-views. But
that's right. Yeah, you can just log in and pay $50 to watch a man get murdered live.
Can I pay no $50? Just watch it scrambled.
That's right. I gotta switch to channel 99 and hope for a clear night to be able to see something here. I think
just to see John Storm's nipple.
Yeah, I think that's his rib cage being broken open there.
Very, very boring fucking looking things.
Yeah, it's crazy because this is 99. This is March of 99 when this episode airs. I remember distinctly in around the 99 era of trying, because I was a big fan of I started to get into horror around that time. I mean, in 99 I was 14 years old. So I was starting to get into horror movies. I was a big fan of the Scream franchise, and Scream 3 came out in February of 2000. So the trailer for that came out in 99, and I distinctly remember trying to watch that trailer. I had to like download an old like real player version of it. Like it was super tiny, horrible quality, and I'm spending, an hour trying to download this thing on my 56K modem or whatever it was at the time. Maybe we had like cable internet at that point. I think maybe we did, but like still it was awful quality. It took forever, and this quality is incredible compared to what you could actually get.
Considering they're bouncing the signal off satellites, because that's how the internet worked in '99. They used satellites instead of cables, and you could just some rogue operation could just I guess hack one of the 10 satellites in space that are like probably almost impossible to hack.
Well, and what we do, like we kind of joked about that while we were watching it, and then they do actually address how they're able to get such a good quality live stream.
Oh, right.
And it
Can you explain
still
it?
doesn't really make sense. So basically, they're like, okay, well, it can't be over the regular internet because that's too good. Like the quality's too good. It's impossible for them to be able to do it. You're like, okay, cool. So they realize that probably not satellites either, because that's not how it works for some reason. So they realize it's Angela working with sorcerer Jacob, I think is his real name, right?
Yeah,
and
we'll call him sorcerer,
sorcerer,
or
yeah.
source. Sork.
And so he realizes that it must be cell phones. So they say that they have linked together like a
10 cell phones. Please put some echo on that so it sounds impressive.
10 or 12 cell phones in 99 to broadcast this fight with crystal clear quality across a various internet stations and whatnot, and also like they like keeping it untraceable too. They're basically saying that like if you have 10 or 12 cell phones linked together, that it's untraceable. So it's like, okay,
it's like Bart Simpson when he just kept putting one speaker in front of another for the megaphones.
Oh, that's right.
And just testing, and it kept amplifying each one,
and it destroys everything.
So 12 Nokias.
Yeah,
they can either play 12 games of Snake. Or they can make anything untraceable.
Well,
and of high quality.
Yeah, I mean, please, if we have any like cell phone historians out there, people who work in the cell phone industry and who know it all, tell me if this was possible. Maybe it was possible in '99. It
certainly sounds like bullshit.
It baffles the mind to think that they could do that in '99. I mean, like even now, like we have you have the ability to like tether your phone to your computer and use it as like a mobile hotspot and everything, and it's still kind of shitty. And I don't.
But what if you had 10?
I mean, I guess if you had 10, it would do the work for you, and you could totally make it work.
You know what it is? It's you know what this is?
What's that?
They're mining crypto.
That's right. It's
the blockchain.
It is the blockchain. That must be what it is. Maybe it worked better back then because there were fewer cell phone users. Like
maybe because all the coins hadn't been mined yet. There was just so many coins just waiting for people to mine.
Well, she does say while they're trying to like hack in and figure it out, she says she's trying to track the info all over the United States to see if they can pinpoint where the fight is taking place. And she's
driving distance.
And she's having trouble because there's too many routers, according to her.
Too many routers,
which is really a funny statement.
Mind you, this is before Wi-Fi.
Oh yeah, definitely before Wi-Fi. So it's not even using like a Wi-Fi network; it's using a cell network, which probably were not super robust in the
No,
late
they've all been replaced.
90s.
All those ones have been long since
I mean,
replaced.
we didn't even have, I don't even think we had 3G service at that point in time. I think that came
No,
along in
no,
like
no.
the 2000s, right? Like,
Around the time of the iPhone 3G.
yeah, oh, yeah, okay. So there you go. So that was like, that was well into the 2000s, like 2010s, I think, when that happened.
The
Um,
3G is 2008, so at
okay.
least 10 years off.
Yeah. So,
And that still wasn't that fast.
no. so, so yeah,
But 10 of them.
yeah, we had 2G in 91. So, I
That's like
mean,
an iPhone 30, which is more powerful than we have now.
that's right. If you link together 10 2G phones, you got 20 Gs.
That's it's just math. It's just math. It
Um,
is all she had to say was like it amplifies
yes.
or just anything.
Yeah, it's dumb. I mean, they could have come up with literally anything they wanted, because this is all stupid. But like, it's funny that they tried to at least come up with some sort of plausible thing. And maybe at the time, this was like a plausible thing that could happen at some
I mean,
point
this
in the future.
it reminds me of the Pinky in the Brain episode where the brain explains that he can do something because it involves powdered milk and microwaves, and no one knows how either work.
That's right. So anyway, they're watching this fight. We've barely talked about this episode. It's fine.
It's nothing happens, but the music just rocks, and there's lots of sound effects and chanting
Yeah, there are
or moaning, kind
Yeah,
of.
oh well, we'll get to that. There are a lot of scenes in this show which feel like they should be shorter, but if they were, then we wouldn't have a full episode runtime. So it's like they're longer than they need to be, for no reason. So we see this fight happening, and the main guy, like I already mentioned, Johnny Storm. He does not say "flame on" or anything like that, but he.
Every time they turn on the laser lights to blind his opponents, they should say flame.
We don't know that that's what's happening at this point. Like he's fighting this guy, something Rudd, and he is getting the better of him, the main fighter who's won all this time, and then something happens when they're on one side of the cage, and the guy like freaks out and grabs his head. And I was thinking, oh, do they have some sort of, I was going way too hardcore with like, oh, they have some sort of chip in his brain and they're activating it to make him lose. But it's very simple. Basically, we find out later that some guy off to the side is just shining a laser in their eyes and blinding them.
Because it's multiple lasers, maybe 10.
Oh yeah, it's 10 lasers all grouped together, so it's a super laser.
Like, it immediately like destroys their entire eyes forever.
Yes, they're like, blind forever at this point.
So like they're basically these guys could be just dropping airplanes left and right.
Well, it's funny too, because like I was joking about this being this like kind of underground, dangerous, kind of fighting ring thing where it's like very secretive and we're killing people and it's this whole thing. But then you like see it, the operation, and it's like just like a regular TV show. You got like a guy who's serving as director being like, give me this camera angle, cut to this one, and do this. And it's just it's weird.
It's just a local affiliate.
Yes. It feels like a public access thing where you're like, this guy really wants to be a director and he's like, trying it out on
I want to see
at 2
in
the morning. Yeah. Oh yeah. He does say that. Like he's like, give me an angle on the meat when Johnny gets in there. And so I thought there was going to be something here about like, because this first one, he doesn't immediately kill the guy, and then the promoter has to go down and tell him like people aren't interested in seeing you fight some bartender, like we want to see blood, and it seems like Johnny doesn't want to do that. So I was fully expecting there to be like some weird conflict within Johnny of like, I don't like doing this anymore. I want to be respected, and but you forced me into it for some reason, whether it's financial, whether it's like you're keeping my family hostage or whatever. They don't even bother with any of that. Yeah,
so he has a speech where he's like, they're like, oh, you can't get a job anywhere because you were caught doing steroids at the Olympics. And he's like, everyone did, but I wasn't good at cheating. Blah blah blah. And
that's what happened with that. That's what happened with Ray Gun. She's doing steroids.
But unfortunately, you're still timestamping this thing. But you're also like, when it comes down to the final battle, he he doesn't have any qualms about anything.
No, yeah, he kind of fades into the background and is not even really a character at a certain point. Like they really do.
The guy with the neck tattoo becomes the more troublesome.
They like it feels like it feels like he's gonna be like have some weird conflict, or he's gonna have like something where he's like has to
crisis
get
of
over
conscience.
it. Yeah, and you're like, oh no, he doesn't want to do it, and it's like, no, he's just kind of, he just doesn't give a shit after a certain point. They just stop focusing on him as a character entirely. So they're doing all this. They're doing more searching to figure out what's going on, trying to figure out where this is coming from. They find the body of Billy Rudd, the first fighter. His wife shows up at the morgue and has a very long scene that is completely unnecessary.
And completely inaudible.
Mostly inaudible because the music's mixed too loud. And she basically just talks about how like he was her only family, and she's sad. And then she gives Angela the information about Mel's gym, where this is where Billy Rudd trained. So they're like, okay, well, that's probably the last place he was seen alive. Let's go over there. And they go over to Mel's, and Angela uses her feminine wiles to flirt with Mel. And try to get some information, and she's really laying it on pretty thick. But Mel
it did not work.
Mel, this very smooth man. He's kind of like maybe The Rock saw Mel on set, and he was like, I like that look. I'm going to be that smooth one day, because Mel is impossibly smooth, bald headed, no facial hair, just looks very strange. It's unusual to see a man that smooth, and doesn't seem to be interested in giving her information on where the fights are taking place. He kind of feigns ignorance a little bit, and finally she shows her badge, and they kind of get into a whole thing, and she tries to arrest him, but then like Walter's like, well, you don't really have any cause for that, so they have to let him go. But it's like, he does put his hands on an FBI agent against their will. That feels like you could lock that guy up pretty quickly for that.
Yeah, but
but I think they do it on purpose so that they will
follow him.
Yeah, so that he can try to like get cold feet and like want to get out of this whole situation, and they'll figure out which he does do. So she's smart. She knows what's going on.
And he immediately is set for death because of that. The only person on the planet who does not know that is himself.
Yeah, he calls the promoter, asks for his money, and then they follow him to a location where they find one of the cells, the fighting rings, and he meets up with this guy who is wearing one of those interesting like jean jacket, leather jacket combos.
Yeah, it's like a jean jacket vest over a leather jacket back.
The ugliest things you can imagine. He's ridiculous looking because you see him later in the gym and he's just working out in jeans, which is pretty great. Like, that's a guy who definitely skips leg day and only focuses on his upper body.
It's an upper body business. You got to get the glamour muscles going.
I mean, he doesn't have any of those either, but it's like
you got that neck tattoo at least.
Yes, he does have an iguana neck tattoo, which is pretty great. And I'm curious if that was the actors or if that was added. And I'm pretty sure it was added, but because it's so stupid.
It makes it look dangerous, like an iguana.
Yeah, it's very, very dangerous. It looks kind of like this will really set it in time. It looks a little bit like those the Sobe iguanas. Do you remember that drink?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like the Sobe iguanas or the Sobe lizards in the logo.
Man, I miss all our what were considered like kind of hippie drinks of the early 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm looking at the Sobe logo right now, the bottles, which some of them look like they're just bottles of ranch dressing. Like they're the white liquid ones look disgusting.
Oh, man, I could go for some ranch dressing now.
There's one that's called Liz Blizz.
Liz. Can you imagine a ranch Italian ice?
Oh God. It's called Liz Blizz, and it looks like ranch dressing.
You're in the Midwest now. You're going to come across it at some point.
But yeah, Sobe, I drank a lot of those because I thought they were healthy.
Sugar.
Yeah, it was those and Sobe, and then a few years later, Bolt House Farms, where you're like, oh, these are healthy, and you're like, no, they're
What about,
not.
what about Nantucket Nectar? They had a special message under each can lid.
Was it
I
a
mean,
religious a religious quote?
I don't think so. I
Scripture?
mean, these all still exist, but they their heyday was before.
Oh, I don't think I ever had. What was that, nectar?
Nantucket
No,
Nectar.
definitely never had that.
I saw one today. You can look those up. They still exist. They're just orange juice and shit.
Yeah, never.
But they might throw in a mango.
Never had that. Sobe apparently is kind of not really a thing anymore. It was a PepsiCo thing, and apparently the website is still active, but
Sometimes, like when something like Snapple makes it big, PepsiCo and Coca-Cola will just create some knockoff to kill it.
yeah, I don't think that Sobe is still a thing. But anyway, this guy was pimping for it real hard with his neck tattoo, and it just didn't work.
Viral marketing, because this is the net.
Actually, I'm very curious now when Sobe started, because like if it was around the time of this, oh my god, 96, so it's very possible that this guy was repping hard for Sobe back when it was underground, because it wasn't bought by Pepsi until 2000.
I just love anything that looks like bad tattoos as their logo.
Yeah. Oh man, they also provided a short-lived carbonated soda called
Nope.
Mr. Green.
No, thank you.
It was
I'd rather be-
it was a tie. Can you guess what it was a tie-in with?
Spider-Man.
No, the Jim Carrey Grinch movie.
Oh shit! Two great things in one.
And they brought it out in April.
That movie was gigantic.
That's true. It was.
And like now, there's now a generation of like 20-year-olds who think that it was actually good.
Yeah, that's true. So anyway, in this episode of the net, where nothing is going on,
Nothing happens. Eventually,
they follow Mel,
bring the
and he
Rock.
gets killed.
He gets killed, and there's only one person they know who can infiltrate the ring and win, and that's the Rock.
Yes. So we
whose name I do not know.
So we were watching it. We were like, it would be insane if they put the Rock in this episode and didn't have him wrestle. And of course they do. They're not stupid. Like it would be. This was what his second role, I think you said, like his second acting role outside of the ring.
He played his dad in that 70s show this year, and also this.
Yeah, and then he was in one of the Star Treks a little bit later.
Star Trek Voyager.
Yeah, like a
you
year
can find
later.
pictures of that. Yeah, you can find pictures of that everywhere online.
Yeah, so his name is Brody, by the way.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
Yeah, so we were like, of course he's going to come back at the end, and he's going to be the one who like stops, this cyber fight.
She has the Zyber helmet.
The Cybernaut.
The Cybernaut helmet, which is what does that do?
I don't know. She wears
Cool,
it at
cool.
some point later on in the episode as if it's supposed to help her, and it has like a little like keyboard on the arm. It looks very much like a Virtual Boy with no visor.
I think she's trying to keep in contact with Sorcerer while he nails down where they're supposed to go. But Brody gets in easily enough because he's big.
Yeah.
And they fight, and it's tell them about how dynamic the footage of the fight is.
Well, okay. So they show him some footage. He goes like of the previous fights, and he's like, "Oh, what about the survivors?" And they're like, "No, they're all dead." And he's like, "Okay, well, I know what this means. It's all in a day's work. I'm volunteering for this." And he goes in, and like you said, he's fucking huge. So they want him to fight. And he goes in to do this fight. And he's basically just wearing his outfit from the ring. Like he's got the knee pads on. He's got the little short black shorts. Like it is 100% The Rock is in the ring in this. And which is funny because this show was on NBC, I think, right?
No, I think it's USA.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay. Well, interesting because
which is owned by NBC, but
yeah, because I'm very curious, like how they promoted it. Like, was it Oh yeah, it was USA. You're right. Okay, so then did they promote
So,
this as like, "Oh, The
well,
Rock is on the net." Like
probably because that's the same channel
yeah,
as
yeah. I mean
Raw.
that I wonder if this episode of The Net aired after WWE that
Well,
year.
considering it was the second to last episode, third to last episode they ever existed, probably didn't help. Probably did not work.
Yeah, it's clearly it didn't. Otherwise, The Rock would have been in all episodes of season 2. Um, but yeah, so they go in. They start to fight, and The Rock Brody, he's doing very well, obviously, but the filmmaking leaves a little bit to be desired because they really just reuse the same shots over and over and over, sometimes even back to back. And I think they're doing it like for like stylistic reasons, but it looks so sloppy and so like bad. There's one point where there is a hit and then they like mirror the footage and use it again immediately after. So it's The Rock hitting from one side, then they flip the footage and he's hitting from the other side, but it's the same hit. It's it's baffling to me. It's like a music video.
It's an odd choice considering they could just make all they're doing is punching. It's not that hard. The choreography could not have been that difficult.
Yeah, it's pretty simplistic and it's not anything like super complicated it looks like, and is blocked pretty poorly. Like I mean you're just kind of seeing behind Johnny Storm, and then you see behind The Rock, and then you see behind Johnny Storm. There's not a ton of like different camera angles. They're not like shooting it in a bunch of different ways. Like it's very very simple.
Yeah, and then like the laser gun comes out for his eyes, and you
Yes.
think, and they are still far away, and you think, and they show it going up his face, like he's gonna be blinded, and you're like, it cuts away, and you're like, did he get blinded or not? You come back in, they've made it there with thanks to her cyber helmet, and somehow, and they get in, and he's just winning the fight.
Yeah, he does win the fight. They come in and they tell everybody to freeze, and they break open the cage and they let him out, and he's beaten the other guy pretty much, and he says, "Oh, I my eyes are hurting. I can't really see." So like he got blinded and still beat the guy. That's how good The Rock is. I mean,
But they
that feels like that's a
that
Vince McMahon note.
choice, yes, but also at the same time, it's almost anticlimactic that he did it.
Yeah, it
It's not.
kind of it kind of sucks. Like like you don't see him actually get blinded. Like it goes up his face. His eyes look like they're like tight. They're shut tight. So you think, "Oh, he's smart enough to know what's happening. He's going to keep his eyes closed and prevent that from happening." But like no, he just gets blinded, but then you don't see him beat the guy the rest of the way. Like they just run in and he's like carrying him out of he's like pushing him out of the ring, and he's like, "Okay."
So like the thing to do is have the other guy take like it happen. The other guy start to win on him, and then he does like a big roar of adrenaline, and he comes back and wins.
Well, the thing that would have been fun is if like he had, as the laser was coming up his face, he like did like a head, like he hit his head back or something and like hit the guy, and then like the guy's eyes fell into the spot and got burned, and like like Johnny Storm's face fell into the laser beam, and or he kicked the cage and the guy who was standing there with the laser gun, like his arm jerked and it went up to Johnny's eyes and burned his eyes instead. Like there's like all of these fun ways that you could do it, and instead they're just like, "Oh yeah, he's got his eyes burned, but he's okay. We fixed him. Like it's okay. It wasn't
It's
bad
so
enough." So
it's so funny just because it's the most boring way of doing it. And you have this wrestler who's charismatic in wrestling, and like every Rock role, which sounds stupid, for like until like 2015, he did the rock bottom in it for some reason.
yeah,
Like no matter who he was, whether he was a Egyptian god or a local
I think he
cop,
does the rock
he
bottom in that Voyager too, doesn't he?
yeah,
Because
like
he's wrestling in that episode, right?
you're right. So he always finds a way to do the rock bottom. He doesn't do a single fucking. He just punches in this episode.
Yeah, he knocks
Just
the guy over pretty early, which is kind of a hit, one of his sort of wrestling-esque moves, but everybody kind of does that, so it's not really anything special.
yeah.
But like you have this guy, and clearly if you're on the same network as WWE, you are bringing him in because he's a rising star within that organization. At least like he wins the fight, but like it's not very exciting, and it's not very it's not very fun, and like there were so many ways that you could have dealt with the laser gun in his eyes in a better way. Like maybe he does get blinded, but just out of his sheer awesomeness, he still beats the shit out of that guy even while blind. Like, like there, because because in the fiction of the story, not only is he a big buff guy, but he's also like a trainer with the FBI. So he's got all these skills, and he's like very equipped and capable. And maybe one of his training skills was not relying on your vision. Like, I mean, you could have wedged that into the story early on when he's like, maybe he deflects a blow from her or something early on. He's like, I don't need to see you to know where you're at. Like something dumb like that dozens of shows have done, which you could have easily done in this, and it would have been fun.
It is the main event, so to say, of the episode. Everything's building towards it, and it's fucking boring.
Yeah, it's so boring.
And then someone gets electrocuted, and I don't know why that happened.
So it's unclear, basically. I haven't said that in a while, but it's one of my favorite phrases when we watch something that is very stupid. But they, like the FBI runs in. Again, it's just Angela and Walter. So like they're not like really trained for this kind of action. But they rush in and they start to break everything down. And the guys in the control room who are handling the cameras and stuff, they bail and they go and jump into a truck. And I guess that truck is like their media truck. So all the wires and stuff are coming out of that truck into the cage, I guess, that's wired for cameras and lights and whatnot. So as they drive away, it rips those wires that pulls the cage down on top of the jean jacket, leather jacket guy, and then some lights fall, and then he gets electrocuted.
I would have thought that jacket would have
insulated him a little bit.
Insulated him because there's just so many materials.
And so he gets electrocuted, and then the other guy, we didn't really talk much about the promoter guy, but it doesn't really matter. That is the promoter is Remy Sloan. That's his name.
It's a good name.
Yeah, it's a good name. We didn't talk about him enough, but he's just an asshole. And he pulls out a gun to shoot Walter. And she hesitates for a second to shoot him, and then finally does it. And he goes down, and she's like, "Oh, I think I might have just killed a man." And he's like, "No, you did a good thing." She's like, "Why do I feel so bad?" She whispers a lot in this. She kind of has like an ASMR-esque kind of a couple of scenes where she's
which is very internet before the internet.
Yeah, she was on the cutting edge. But yeah, there's a moment where she's looking for when they're hunting Mel and following him. She's like, Mel, where are you going? Just like, what is this? Like, why?
Meanwhile, the music's going. Bwah, 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 bwah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And so then we cut to after all of this is done, they're back in the computer shop. Sorcerer is there, and we didn't really talk about it, but basically she had to give him some login credentials from Walter in order for him to help them find the location or something. And so Walter's a little salty about that, about Sorcerer being this college kid with some FBI credentials. And I think she's like trying to see about getting him into the FBI or getting to work with the CIC. And Walter's sort of opposed. And obviously, they're building towards the end of the season where he would just, become a part of the team officially.
And then never be seen
yes,
again.
And it will never happen. But there is a line. So we find out here that one, Brody is okay. They were able to get him to the doctor and his eyes are fine, thankfully. It's great. We get a line, though. The guy that she shot, Remy, not dead, thankfully, but probably not for long because, as Walter says, Remy Sloan is recuperating. Hopefully he'll be healthy enough for his execution.
I was like, what? I just lost my shit there. Because what a line out of nowhere.
Yeah, this guy he was hosting some illegal death matches. We're going to execute him.
Wow, it's just so weird. Such a weird thing to throw in there.
Yeah, they don't really mention. I don't think at the end here they don't mention what's going on with Johnny Storm. I think they just kind of let him. He's just he's on his
Back,
own.
he's back, gone to the wind.
Yeah. And then, the episode ends, and over the closing credits, we get the song Last Man Standing that is played during all of the underground cage fights that we watch. Diegetic music too. It is on the broadcast that you're watching. So that's a thing that is just they just decided this was the song that was going to soundtrack this.
I mean, they're underground illegal. They could have stolen any song whatsoever and not paid for it.
And I think we didn't really talk about it, but obviously this is kind of the sort of early-ish days of UFC. I don't think UFC had been around that long at the time this episode aired. Like it was pretty early, right? I think we said like early 90s maybe was when this kind of started. 93 or so.
Yeah, 93 or so.
Yeah, so still pretty early on, and maybe this was one of those things where it was like this is look at this savagery, what are they going to think of next? And then they kind of naturally create this story of, well, they're going to be putting it in cages on the internet and letting people get killed. Actually, pretty funny. I'm looking at the Wikipedia for UFC. Obviously, take all this with a grain of salt, but it says that in '96, John McCain saw a tape of the first UFC events and immediately found it abhorrent, and he led a campaign to ban the UFC, calling it human cockfighting.
Yeah, that's a big. They didn't even get it back into New York until last few years,
and sent letters to the governors of all 50 U.S. states asking them to ban it. And 36 states enacted laws that ban no holds barred fighting, including New York.
And that's where they had to come up with the universal laws of mixed martial arts,
which oh my god, including New York, which enacted the ban on the eve of UFC 12, forcing it to relocate to Dothan, Alabama. Alabama's 8th largest city by population.
Trump should go campaign there.
Yeah, that's better than him going to a stronghold of the Klan.
Hey, that is the most important city in Michigan. Like, there's no other. The population is there, right? You wouldn't go to Detroit.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously, still pretty early on in the lifespan of UFC. And I'm sure that's probably I maybe that's like kind of the impetus for it. Like, oh, these states banned it, so they have to go underground and they can really no holds barred it then for real.
This was the age of death sports were going to be underground and famous and more popular than anything, thanks to the internet, because this is what rollerball is.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's right. It's like rollerball.
Everyone wanted that storyline.
Why did that not happen? Like UFC fighting is just so like I don't like it. For one, I don't like it. I don't like the culture around it. I think it's very shitty, and I think it's led to a lot of really awful things in the realm of toxic masculinity. Like, I think that is one of the big contributors to the high amount of really shitty men that we have today. Like, this UFC is absolutely a contributor to that. To this very sort of idealized, this is what you need to do to be masculine or whatever bullshit. Like it's garbage. And if you like UFC, hey, that's fine. You can like what you like, but I think I think it fucking sucks. But like, why did we not get something more fantastic? Like UFC is just two guys fighting each other.
Everything they try to do, everything they try to do fantastic fails.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's
like
true.
Slam Ball failed, and look, could anything be more fantastic than Slam Ball?
But like, let them fight if you really want. Like,
let them fight on trampolines.
Yes, yeah, let them fight on trampolines. Let them put them in like harnesses with like bungee cords, and they're bouncing around, punching each other, and like flying around a ring. Like, give them some like High bats or something like whatever, like those scoops or whatever with like blades on them or whatever. But like make it interesting. If it was interesting, I'd watch a guy get killed if he's flying around on like a trapeze with a knife.
I mean, like, I would, if you're going to do some terrible things online, which a lot of influencers do, which is mostly just selling out to corporations, which fine, they're all
Center of
pieces
Weirdness
shit.
will never sell out to a corporation. If you're a big corporation and you're trying to buy us out,
If you are
it's
a
not
small
gonna happen.
if you are a small corporation, you want to get us free swag, that's fine. But like,
We'll only take
What-
$1 million.
The Running Man, what a great show! That would be fantastic if I had to watch trash. That would be someone. If I had to watch trash where someone dies, the Running Man is a great thing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what we would end up with is a bunch of like white rich boys killing people of color.
Yeah, that's true. That is typically how these things go. Or it'd be like a death race thing where like they're just pulling prisoners out and murdering them for no reason.
Like who knows what Trump future, which may or may not happen right now, looks like it may not happen.
Yeah. God
once
willing.
again, God willing, time stamping it. He's falling apart right now.
Yeah.
He's posting AI pictures of Swifties for Trump right now. He's posted 72 times in the last hour.
Since we started recording.
Since we last started recording. Rounded up to near 72.
Man, just to jump in here, like the world has changed so much in such a short period of time.
You're welcome from Minnesota.
Yeah, good. Good. Just the country has undergone a lot of changes, and a lot of things that seemed certain a couple of weeks ago are not so certain now, and there is a slight maybe glimmer of hope is it's going to fix everything if it goes our way in the election. Absolutely fucking not. There's a lot of horrible things that are currently occurring, and
influencers aren't going anywhere. They're terrible.
Yeah, that's the worst. But yeah, there's lots of awful stuff, but it is nice to have like some sense of hope. And I don't know. I'll probably cut all this out, but I just had to say it.
It's good on the nerves. I remember recording a podcast right before the elections in 2016, and then we just did not bring the podcast back again because we were too depressed to record for about half a year.
Yeah. It's things are weird, but I think I brought all that up just to say that, like, when we start recording a show, something could have irrevocably changed in the hour that we spend recording this show.
In the last hour on Truth Social, I found out that in political polls, according to Donald Trump's Truth Social, he is winning by 63% for himself. Second place is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at 22%. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris is going to come last with 14% of the vote. It's called political polls. It has a check mark. So this is the final result of the American election. There was a full almost 274,000 people voted. Unfortunately, it was just 273,999 votes. That's all the votes you'll get.
So breaking news here.
Breaking news. Trump wins 63%. Robert F. Kennedy is in second place. He gets a silver medal. Shameful bronze for Democrat Kamala Harris. This is very reflectful of the real world. He is not falling apart.
Honestly, now that you mention that, we're very political. We don't really ever get political too much. But that would be something. Like, not only would I enjoy watching guys on like trapeze with knives and blades and stuff fighting each other, like that would be something to see. Like, I'd probably dislike it just for the brutality aspect, but like I would watch it at least once or twice. But if in the presidential race you got a medal for what place you came in,
I would think it'd be so funny if like you had to, like, Trump had to show up to get a silver medal. And he had to stand there a level below on a podium to Harris.
Yeah, and that would be, and like, you had to do it because if you didn't show up for the medal ceremony, then it didn't count. It didn't count. Like, it was just whatever, it would go to the next person.
Yeah, next person would, like, if then RFK gets a silver medal of and then, like,
and there would just be a big void in like the space. They would just blot your name out. Like, it would say your name, but it would say your name, but it would be like not official.
Yeah, and like if you don't show up, you end up on Running Man.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You know, we're going there. The UFC is just the precursor to Running Man and Death Race and all of these things that are coming down the pike pretty soon. But I think that's probably enough about the net. A show that I don't think we'll ever watch again. I mean, I would be.
It was boring.
It was boring. I'd be interested to go back to see what they do with Tim Curry, like just to watch a clip to see like, is it an actual, like you said, digital Tim Curry face, or is it just his voice? If it's the face, that could be fun, but probably isn't. And then, yeah.
Could you imagine like dedicating a whole hour of your life for this show plus commercials?
No, it would be so boring. So we should rate this one. We should put it on our scale of weirdness, which again, if you're a new listener, means nothing. It's really just our rating for the episode. And if it's an extra weird one, we might give it a couple more points, but more than likely it's going to be just a sort of simple rating. So where do you put this one? What is the rating for this one?
3, because I wanted more crazy internet stuff from the 90s, but the soundtrack gets a 7.
Oh, okay. I can get on board with that. I think a 3 and a 7 is good, and
it's just so much noise.
Yeah, and 3 and 7 are part of LEET, which is very internet culture-y.
And 00BS.
8008 5
5
or 2, whichever. But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode on the net and this episode of Center of Weirdness. I will just say that, you know, this will come out probably close to the end of August, or maybe very early September, and we are obviously getting closer to the fall. And that means that we're getting closer to the Center of Weirdness spooky season. Center of Spookiness will be rolling back around pretty soon. We've got some fun stuff planned, and I'm excited about it. I know our output has been a little less frequent recently, but we do hope to put out a few episodes on a regular basis during at least October. We've got something I think fun and special coming in September. So hopefully, if you are listening, you will come back. Feel free to tell a friend if you like this show and you enjoy what we're doing. And if you don't, that's also fine. You can tell us that too.
Yeah, what?
Just talk to us. Just let us know you heard it.
Josh is very.
I'm going to cut that out. But until next time, I've been Josh.
I've been Skinner.
And we want you to keep it weird when you're out there on the internet.
Order some pizza and have your identity stolen.
That's right. Play the Mozart's Ghost. I wonder if that game comes up in the show. She's playing that in the movie.
If this had lasted longer, would eventually she have like infiltrated Club Penguin?
You've been listening to Center of Weirdness. If you like the show, rate and review us wherever you find us, but especially on Apple Podcasts. You can listen to every episode at centerofweird.com, where you can also find all the old Predictocast episodes. And if you want to get in touch with us to tell us about a show we should cover, hit us up on Instagram or Threads at Weirdness Podcast. And as always, thanks for listening.